Welcome to Deleted Saves. On this episode, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge on Nintendo Switch. It is not too often that something that was such a part of my 1980s childhood gets another chance to come back in current times. But then again, there were very few properties as much of a lightning in a bottle event as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But once again, the heroes in the half shell have returned for a new round of heroic exploits. Was it worth it? Let's discuss that with 2022's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. This new TMNT game, as I'll be referring to it going forward, comes to us courtesy of developer Tribute Games, the folks who made the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World game, which I did not play because, well, I have no idea, other than I wasn't interested in the comic or movie, and publisher Dotemu, who helped bring us Streets of Rage 4, so already a solid foundation for beat-em-up titles. If they could help resurrect that storied franchise, then why not one of the most popular franchises based on martial arts ripoffs and reptiles around? In any case, the story behind this tale is simple. Taking place in a short but nebulous time just after the long ago arcade title Turtles in Time, our four heroes must once again defeat the Foot Clan, Shredder, and their outworld brain in a robot box ally known as Krang, in an attempt to return the Statue of Liberty to New York City. This time, however, the perennial teenagers are joined by their father and teacher, Master Splinter, the giant rat in the karate gi, and their human friend, April O'Neil, a reporter in yellow with Channel 6 News in New York, as they slam, smash, slice, and crush their way through an army of ninja robots. As with movies set in New York, the city is as much a character in this tale as the turtles themselves. The battle begins shortly after the theft of the Statue of Liberty, when the Turtles arrive at Channel 6 headquarters, searching for one of their old nemesis named Bebop, to find the Foot have invaded the entire building and are causing havoc, answering phones, operating boom mics, slashing up sets, and trying to telecast some sort of terrorist propaganda. Once the heroes shatter the hopes and dreams of the Foot from breaking into showbiz, the battle continues out in the streets of New York as the Foot steal the tires of the Turtles' party van, then extending to the city zoo, a mega mall, the sewers. Oh, look, a sewer level in the game that actually makes sense. And then across dimensions into the alternate reality of Dimension X, where living rock soldiers and a race of Triceratops warrior people add their power to the forces of the Foot. Where things end at the Technodrome, where the party defeats Krang and almost defeats Shredder yet again, until he dimension hops back to New York with the heroes in tow. It is here the final act of the plan is unveiled. Krang is back piloting the Statue of Tyranny, a giant version of his mech suit wearing the Liberty spikes and shooting lasers. And once defeated, the last fight of the game is against a mutated Shredder as the party fights him 6-on-1 in the middle of Times Square. Once defeated, the party relaxes with a well-earned pizza, which, let's be honest, the Turtles had to be one of the biggest driving sales forces for pizza joints across America for decades, and the Statue of Liberty is returned to her proper place on Liberty Island. This game is nothing if not fast-paced, and full of cameos and callbacks to the extended lore of the franchise. The first among these rewards and unlocks begins at the end of the first playthrough, when the longtime Turtles ally Casey Jones is unlocked as a playable character. He is a man wearing a hockey mask and coming armed with a golf bag full of sports equipment pressed into service as weapons. But along the way, many of the villains the heroes face and allies they rescue come from the 80s and 90s cartoon show, movies, 80s comics, and this game even references its previous arcade incarnations. Big Apple 3PM, anyone? But beyond Bebop and Rocksteady, the evil punk rock mutants of the series, we see movie sequel introduce Toka and Razar, the Rat King, Metalhead, Leatherhead the Gator Man, Evil Turtle Slash, and many others fans will recognize. It even brings back two auto-scrolling levels, one which involves chasing down an out-of-control monster truck as it careens across the Broadway Bridge in New York City, and an air battle that leads to a crash on Coney Island. God, this game hits as many, if not more, of the landmarks of the Big Apple than Spider-Man. But it's not all enemies who appear. The punk frogs show up as characters you can rescue. Various series famous members of Channel 6 News family also appear to say hello and get saved by the turtles. And after the 2023 DLC update titled Dimension Shell Shock, it added heroes Karai, the turtle's sometimes ally, sometimes rival, who is herself a member of the Foot Clan, and Miyamoto Usagi, the hero of his own comic series, Usagi Yojimbo, created by Stan Sakai. Hey, call back to my Ghost of Tsushima review, about an anthropomorphic samurai rabbit who was later incorporated into the TMNT universe. With those additions, the roster of heroes expands from 6 to 9 possible heroes to choose from. Absolutely crazy by beat-em-up standards, but I think that was what the developers were going for. Balls to the wall, mutant mayhem. But this is not the end of the money that was spent on the game. For decades now, the original TMNT creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird had long sold off their involvement in the franchise, and it eventually ended up in the hands of Nickelodeon, the children's network, and Paramount Pictures subsidy. Nintendo approached Dotemu to adapt one of its franchises, and since Tribute Games had been pitching a new TMNT game for years, the two were matched up to bring us this stellar title. And wow, it feels like no expense was spared. The original voice cast for all 4 Ninja Turtles from the 1987 debut cartoon, voice actors Cam Clark as Leonardo, Barry Gordon as Donatello, Robert Paulson as Raphael, and Townsend Coleman as Michelangelo, were brought back to reprise their roles for this game. Even the soundtrack has some heavy hitters from the music industry performing songs for this beat-em-up. Most famously were rappers Raekwon and Ghostface Killah from Wu-Tang Clan. I think I pronounced those right. I don't really follow hip-hop and only vaguely know them by name, so sue me. And Mike Patton of Faith No More / Mr. Bungle / Phantoma / too many to name at this point fame, who has shown up in more than a few games over the years as well, to help out with original songs for the soundtrack. So apparently Nickelodeon and Paramount wanted this to be a success. So how did that turn out? Well, critical reception was quote-unquote generally favorable. Again, as I've said in the past, what this means is that it was pretty good, but wasn't going to win over any critics because of reasons. Those reasons usually being they couldn't parlay this into success in Hollywood somehow. Which, even in the year of our corporate overlords, 2023, means industry hangers-on are still desperate to impress the archaic and decaying Hollywood machine for reasons I simply cannot fathom. But for y'all poors out there who are in pop culture land who are too busy guzzling Miller and shoveling cheese doodles into your mouth to casually deconstruct Dick Hart, then this game is great for you. And in many ways, that is how the reviews of this game are deconstructed. A lot to cheer for when you know all the in-jokes and references and templates. Good to get together with childhood friends over to relive Saturday morning in front of the TV, back when that was a thing, and a great soundtrack, but too much like its label mate Streets of Rage 4, and did not break any new ground in the genre. A genre built upon the back of punching the living shit out of thugs, murderers, and crime bosses over several levels while dumping buckets full of quarters into an arcade machine with extrajudicial impunity. Lack of variety in level design and lack of longevity due to simply repetition and difficulty that does not scale. You know, maybe these gaping assholes have a point in that. But this was also meant to be a loss leader game, a trial property by Paramount and Nickelodeon to see if there was any interest in the property still. And they found it. The game was a sales blockbuster, selling over 1 million copies in its first week of publishing. Repetition is the name of the game, motherfuckers. Games are a Skinner box, a tool to provoke response with simple stimuli for pleasurable results to elicit sales of a product for digestible consumption in a competitive market. See, I can sling $20 words with the best of them. Maybe I could apply to write for Polygon or Game Informer or IGN too. Jesus H. Tub-hubbing Christ, these critics do not cease to impress me with their vapid insights. When I first bought this game into my catalog, I was hoping for a fun game where I got to beat up bad guys and be on my way. I certainly got what I paid for and much more. This is a beautiful game, a slick and borderline sublime visual experience in its animation, recalling the early arcade days but updated to fit the expectations of the modern gamer in an almost 32-bit format, yet not quite. Something newer, something more subtle. The hits feel solid and chunky yet cartoonish, which certainly fits the original 1987 television debut, which, as children's shows go, was required to be censored and cleaned up compared to the bloody and deadly original comic book inspiration, which is why we have robot ninjas as compared to actual flesh and blood ones. And one cannot help but float upon a sea of serotonin while playing through this game. Yes, I do agree the nostalgia bias is real and can color our views on a B-plus grade game or lesser titles. But I'm not here to quibble over false academia. I'm here to have fun in the moments between birth and death, when the only true work one can attain in life is feeding the ceaselessly hungry bellies of despair and useless labor. Glum though that outlook may be, and I understand if you do not share it, no matter how wrong I believe you to be, but that is why we play simple titles like this one. For nothing more profound than simple relaxation and unwinding in moments of quiet between responsibilities. Haha, there I go again, getting all deep in a review of a game no more deep than the random puddles on the men's room floor. Look, Shredder's Revenge is just good, if short and simple game. Smash the foot, get back a national landmark important to only one city on Earth, be a mutant hero the X-Men could never be. I'd say there are some rather supreme irony that in a studio based in Montreal that was big on taking back a French-made American icon in this game from one of the only 3 cities in the whole of the continental United States that actually counts, but I'll let that fine point slide because I find the implications personally amusing and nothing more. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder's Revenge, is a great addition to the beat-em-up genre at a time when that genre is no longer popular, but occasionally has sparks of brilliance and great returns to a bygone era. And based on how financially well recent entries in the genre have been, we may be getting a few more of just a few of these games down the road. There will always be echoes of Final Fight or the Combat Tribes or Golden Axe in all of these other belt scrollers. We cannot get away from script that is so easily written and adhered to with success. We at least can pay our entry fee and enjoy the ride for as long as it happens, which thankfully, and very much in a calculated manner, is fast. It doesn't hurt that this candy-colored adventure features a franchise seemingly tailor-made for beat-em-ups, or at least one that has been hammered and bent into the shape of one, as it has been for much of its primary and secondary existence. Who out there remembers when the Turtles decided to rock stadiums across the land and release their first album? Yeah, I try to forget that too. But that's capitalism for you. Plus, this game has 6-player online co-op, so even if there are no other fans in your house, you can join players online and fight it out. Honestly, what's there not to love, at least in one form or another, in this game? Once again I say, and I cannot stress this enough, Cowabunga, my dudes. Grab a slice and kick some shell. Thank you for listening. Deleted Saves would like to thank Brad, Keith Gasper, Orden Wells, and Mass Lama for being patrons of the show. If you would like to become a patron of the show, please go to patreon.com and check out Deleted Saves podcast. All donations go directly towards maintaining the show itself. Thank you.